Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Am I live? I'm feeling alive. If somebody can hear me, say, you sound great. Just type that right into the live chat, or my buddy Scott Jernigan can type in, I sound great. Somebody can type in, I sound great. I sound great. Hot dang. All right. Whoosh. Fantastic. Hi, everybody. This is Mike Meyers on the Monday edition. This is Martin Luther King Day here in the States. So it's a holiday for most of us. This is the Monday version of the Mike Meyers Ask Mike Anything live stream. The goal of this live stream is to provide those of us who are isolated by the coronavirus an opportunity to continue our studies. We concentrate mainly on A+, Net+, and Security+, but we can sure go outside of that within the realm of CompTIA and even to other certifications as well. So it's completely up to you. The way this works is we start now, and we will run till 4 o'clock Central Standard Time here in Houston, Texas. It's an Ask Mike Anything. So you ask me questions and then I answer them. You can ask me questions by just typing them here into the chat if you'd like. Or if you'd prefer, you can send me an email. My email is michaelm@totalsem.com. You can just send me an email there and then I'll answer your question for you. I can answer it, I'll answer it online. So if you have a more complicated question or if you're the general shy type, feel free to just email them in. If you're a gamer, I am Senor Pepe on Steam. And when in doubt, if you're looking for me in this world, just look up the word Desweds and you'll find all kinds of stuff about me that you didn't know existed. All right, so things are a little bit different today. We had spent last Wednesday, I'm going to sit down for a minute. We had spent last Wednesday talking about your first system build. And we're going to go ahead and continue that. And I've actually brought some toys around. I don't know if you can tell this camera's been widened out a little bit. It's because we're trying something a little different tonight. So we're actually going to continue on the system build. I have some components here, and we're going to go ahead and start building those up. And as we continue to talk about it, we'll get about it as far as we can, however far that is, and we'll be in good shape. Let's see who's on before I go anyplace else. RedTB3, we tried plugging in a HDMI to USB-C little adapter. Now the problem is I don't know what kind, is it straight USB-C? Because there is no perfect HDMI to USB-C signal, right? So there's some type of conversion going on. Anyway, we took that and, oh, that would have stunk. Plugged it into 2 different Android phones and then sent the output to a monitor, and just by doing that, we had no luck. So yeah, I could probably tweak up the software a little bit. We probably also want to do a little more research on what's the kind of right type of device, because USB-C is it's a shape, right? And it could be used for all kinds of different types of signals. USB, obviously, but it can also be used for Thunderbolt. So we have to do a little bit more research there. But first try was kind of a whiff, but that's going to happen sometimes, so that's okay. All right, let's see, who else is on here today? Elbow, of course, Tolowitz here, Jason Elms, Alan Duggan, Zach. Hey, Zach. All right, just looking up names here, guys. Ali El Sharif. Hi, Mike. Is there a Soho router you'd recommend? Almost anything that Asus and Linksys are making right now, especially in the 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6 world, are great. I'm very happy with those. Yes, Andre, we are building systems today. In fact, I even brought in a second camera so you guys can take a look at this. So, guys, we started talking on last Wednesday about building your dream system. So this is going to be a continuation of that. In particular, I've got a bunch of components here. We'll go through some assembly. I can't do a full assembly because it's slow and boring. I'm not quick at it. And you can watch somebody like Linus Tech Tips or somebody like that who can, this is live, kids. So unless you want to sit here and watch me go, Probably not worth it. But we'll go through a lot, and we'll learn a lot too. So I hope you guys will have fun. I see some new names in here. Sailor SB. Mike, you're awesome. Sailor SB, I think you're awesome too. Andras Nairi. Hi, guys. All right. Okay, so anyway, Miss Post, hello. Okay, so guys, here, feel free to ask questions about anything you want at any time. I want to go ahead and start building up the system and start talking about dream components. But if any questions come up at any time on any topic, just throw them out there, and we'll always catch them. I've got Scott Jernigan here to help out. Dave Rush is also in the audience. So if I miss a question, don't get mad. Just ask the question again. It's no big deal. We can always do it time and time again. So anyway, with that understanding in mind, also we have a really great special today. I'm not going to mention what it is yet, but I will soon. It's different. It's going to be different than what you're used to. So be careful. We got a great special coming up for you guys. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. When we took off on Wednesday, we had a pretty good conversation about AMD versus Intel, and right now Ryzen is definitely kind of running the high in terms of price performance ratio. But more importantly, we had a lot of discussions about RAM. In particular for me, the biggest thing about RAM is the RAM you're going to get is going to be a consequence of your CPU and your motherboard. The CPU determines the type of RAM you're going to use. If you got a Ryzen like I have here, you're going to be using DDR4. But that's it. Now the speed will definitely vary depending on the particular type of processor you have, as well as the motherboard itself. So little things like that. We also talked about motherboards quite a bit. You'll be interested to see what I chose as a motherboard. And then the last thing we talked about was video cards. And that's where I want to get into the biggest issue I think we have today, kids, and that, or right now, there's a lot of parts you just cannot get, okay? Now, I wanted to have some parts here today so that we could work together and have some fun and play some toys. So I was definitely willing to make more compromises than I normally would. So in particular, I've made two pretty big compromises. Number one, the processor I got is a Ryzen, but unfortunately, it's a Series 3 Ryzen. Nothing wrong with these. These are great CPUs, but they're not quite as groovy as the Series 5 Ryzens, which are currently out. There was no Series 4. That would be the first one. And then the second one is on video cards. Just forget it. You can't get. I've been trying to get a stinking RTX, preferably a 3070, but I'd prefer a 3070, 3080, and I can't get them. I cannot get them. Yeah, if I want to pay an outrageous sum of money, I could get the video card, but I can't get them. So I settled today, and I bought kind of like last year's video card. What I ended up buying was this is the AMD, this is the RX 5700 series card. So this is an older card, but it will work for building up a dream system. And to be honest with you, unless you're really a hard gamer, video cards like this, which are $200 cheaper than RTX 3000 series, are great cards to have. So with that attitude in mind, let's take a look. Let me show you some of the toys I bought here. Okay, so first of all, here's my Ryzen processor. And let me make sure, what's the exact number did I get here? So this is the Ryzen 9, but it's the 3900 series. So this should have been the 5000 series to make me really happy, but nobody had them, so tough. Now what's interesting, so you look at this box, you can see the CPU right at the top, right? So normally when you see a box like this, and it's an AMD branded box, so I would call this an OEM CPU. There's no fan. So, and of course, when I go up and talk to the guy, they're like, well, they've never had fans. I go, well, they used to have fans all the time, whatever. So if I didn't have a fan, I've decided that on this particular build, I'm going to go with a liquid cooling setup. Now, the reason I'm doing liquid cooling is not because I'm going to be overclocking. It's not even because I need that much of a sound reduction. And those are the only two reasons to overclock, in my opinion. Well, there's a third reason, because it's cool. And so I am definitely going to be pushing the RGB envelope on this. So for the RGB, I'm going to make it very pretty on the inside. And so for the RGB, I've got very pretty colorful fans. I've got a very pretty colorful motherboard. I believe even the RAM has RGB support. So this system's going to be glowing. It's going to be beautiful. All right. Anyway, let's take a look at what else I got here. So the motherboard was definitely, I'm not going to say it was a compromise, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. This is the X570 chipset, which is an absolutely outstanding chipset for Ryzen processors. This is a Republic of Gamers brand, which is Asus. It's just more of their gaming PCs. So these guys are going to definitely have things like, you know, SLI, crossfire support. They're going to have, what else am I thinking of? Some degree of overclocking. Asus is typically pretty good on overclocking, but it's not a bad little. It's not a bad little system. And then for RAM, let me just show you the box first. So this is just what brand did I get? This is not a brand I know well. I've seen them around. It's called G-Skill, and so what I got was 2 sticks of DDR4, oh God, what is the number? Don't want to lie. DDR4 3600, which this is one of the nice things about buying your CPU and your RAM and your motherboard from the same guy, is I have some degree of, I have a high degree of confidence that all these toys are going to work together. This is one of the big benefits of living in a bigger town like Houston, Texas. I can go to stores, we have a lot of brick and mortars that I can go to that are generally well stocked, and I can go in there and I can look at this and I can be talking with the salesperson directly to make sure that the motherboard, the RAM, and the CPU are going to play together. That's important. If I don't have that, I'm going to reduce to going through the motherboard book. You know, let's do an unveil here. Sounds like there's something in there. Oh, it looks like, are those wireless antennas? Okay, well, what I'm looking for here, kids. There it is. Now I'm happy. The motherboard book. If I didn't have a salesperson that I trusted comfortably, boy, isn't it great that optical media isn't popular anymore? Brand new motherboard. If I didn't have a salesperson that I trusted implicitly, I would require to have this book in my hand to verify exactly what CPUs it can take, and you know, AMD AM4 socket for 3rd generation AMD Ryzen, so I know that's good, and DDR as fast as 4400 down to DDR4 2400, and it definitely has 3600 right in there. I'm going to try to put that up to the thing. Is that even got any hope of showing up? No, that's too hard to see. But with that book, now I know exactly good and well that it's all going to work together. I wouldn't, if it wasn't for the fact that I really like the salespeople, again, this is Micro Center here in Houston, Texas, I would absolutely insist on that. So I'm going to take a little peek here, because this motherboard, now let me show you what I'm looking at. This motherboard, already making a mess. I've got some SATA connectors. RGB. Arbitrary little, oh, this is probably a thermal connector for a thermocouple. Some zip ties, but I got my own. This is more RGB. Bunch of SATA cables that'll probably never be used ever. All right. So it's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do first of all, watch this. Keep watching, guys. All right. See this little setup I got here? This is how I'm going to build the system up. I'm actually going to sit here and I'm going to mount the CPU. I'm going to go ahead and plug in a power supply. I'm going to drop on the video card. And because it's on the motherboard box like this, you can actually, the card slips down underneath there. And I'll be pretty much ready to go. Now, there's a couple of things on here that these Republic gamer cards that are particularly good for. Let me show you a couple of things on this motherboard. You're always going to see me going for if I can. You can see right here I got a power on self-test that's built into the motherboard. That's always convenient. This one has 4 PCIe 16 lanes, so if you really wanted to get into SLI or something like that, you could. I'm a single video card person, so that's not that big of a deal for me. I like a pretty color. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Things like fan connectors are close enough to the CPU that I'm not going to be fighting for that. But again, those are things I almost assume these days more than anything else. So P1, P2, P4 connectors are where they should be. AM4 is ready to rock and roll. All right, so I'm just put that right there. So I do need to warn you about one thing. So I'm at the store and I'm not comfortable with all the all the Corona going around. I don't even like being in stores, to be honest with you. So, but I'm in the store running in. And I was like, do I need thermal paste? I was like, nah, I don't need thermal paste. I got tons of it at home. The liquid cooler, the metal head for the liquid cooler, surely that'll have a thing of heat dope paste on it. Nope, I don't have any thermal paste. So we're not going to be booting this system up. If I was really under pressure to do this, I could use things like toothpaste. I've even seen people say, take cheddar cheese, I'm not kidding, and put that between the CPU and your cooling. I'm not going to make, because it'll be messy, and it's a short-term solution anyway. If you start putting all these weird things like either toothpaste or American cheese, seriously, American cheese, I'm not lying. Don't use any of that Belgian cheese. Polygrip for people who have dentures, that's supposed to work well. But all of these other examples will only work for a few days, 2 or 3 days tops, and then the heat will break them down, cook them, and they won't be any good anymore. So I'm going to skip that part, and I'll probably run over to Scott Jernigan's house and see if he's got some heat dope I can borrow. All right, let's take a little peek here and see what I'm doing. Yeah, so the first part, anytime on any system build here, is we're going to be dropping the CPU. Notice how I'm holding it, guys. Do you see this? I'm not using anti-static anything because, well, I'm careful. And what I'm just looking for now are the orientation point. I just saw it here. And I can just feel, it feels nice and down, so I drop that in. And ta-da! I have now mounted the CPU. People don't know this, but the physical assembly of systems is by far the easiest thing there is on a system assembly. For me, really the hard part more than anything else is making sure that I do good cable management, because I'm a slob, man. I'll run cables. I'll make a huge mess. But cable management is going to be a big clue. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and slap some RAM in here. Now, on most of these systems today, they're pretty forgiving, and you can almost drop the RAM anywhere. But what I'm going to be looking for is here in the motherboard book, there's usually some diagram, and it's showing me the 4 slots. And I'm looking for the channels. So the channels are next to each other. Sometimes, almost all memory is dual channel now, and sometimes the channels, which are the 2 sticks, the 2 parts that work together, sometimes they're like this, but on this motherboard they're like this. And it usually doesn't matter which one I populate. In fact, most of these, I don't even check this anymore. I'm just going to drop it in, and if it doesn't work, this is the nice part, it won't break anything. I'll just have to do it again. So. I'm going to double check one more thing. So it actually says the A channels are further away. I don't need to do this, but I'm paranoid. Nice little click. I got it in there. Otra vez. Let's do it again. Cool. And that definitely does have some RGB. That white stuff here. Turn this for you guys. I can do better than turn it. All this white stuff will glow when I get that all lit up. All right. So once the motherboard and the CPU, once the motherboard has a CPU and RAM, in most cases, the next thing I would do is I would actually go for a test right now. So I've got my power supply ready to go. This is an EVGA 850 watt power supply. It's the lowest efficiency you can get. It's only 80, but 80 is still good. And it's modular, so all these parts come out. I like modular because I don't like to have superfluous cables if I can possibly avoid it. So normally what I'd be doing at this point in the game is I would drop the video card on and plug up the power supply and just test the thing to see if I get a power on self-test. I don't even plug in a keyboard. I don't even plug in a monitor. Because I have a power on self-test on the motherboard, if those numbers start to change, I know I've got a good boot. The nice part is by doing something like this, if I have a problem early on, I'm not digging a system out to grab a bad CPU or to diagnose bad motherboards or whatever it might be. A lot of people aggressively disagree with me doing this. They're saying I literally take this power supply and plug it in and fire it up, and that scares some people. And it's not something to be done lightly. The reason I can't do it here, guys, is very simple, and that is I don't have a way to cool that CPU. Now, I probably wouldn't hurt the CPU by overheating it because all CPUs will automatically shut down on their own, but I don't want to risk it, so we're going to be playing it safe here and kind of talking through the rest of the process. A couple of things on this system that make me a little bit on the sad side, but I'm not going to panic about it. First of all, on the actual box, it didn't say that it had Wi-Fi, so I went and bought a second Wi-Fi card, and now I've opened the box, and it has Wi-Fi, so well, that's my fault there. The other thing, it does have HDMI on here, even though I'm going to be using an external card. But you got to keep in mind that the onboard is only going to work if you have a CPU that has built-in graphics. Not all CPUs do, especially as you get to more advanced CPUs, they don't even have that on there. I've seen a lot of people get frustrated because they build up a system with some high-end CPU. They see that HDMI port, they plug stuff into it. It's like, no, it doesn't work. Nothing breaks. It just doesn't work. And that's what we're running into there. Okay, so I like my motherboards. I like them all black like this. I just think it makes for a good-looking board, don't you? All right, well, basically, there's going to be a couple more steps that I'm going to be doing offline, and we'll discuss those maybe Wednesday, probably Wednesday, and that is once the system's tested, and I can do a dry test, make sure everything's up and cooking. the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start my system build. One of the things that I really want to do on this particular system is I want to play with the lights, the RGB, and I want it to be glowing colors, and I want to work with the programmability and all that. And I had to get the right kind of case to do that. So what I did, I don't want to pull it out because it's a pretty big case. I have a Leon Lee case that's all pretty in glass, magnets, doors, so the doors pop on and off easily. And it has space for water cooling, because the water cooler, got to remember I have a wired microphone on me. So this is pretty typical for what we'll be seeing on liquid cooling systems that are just for the CPU. I don't remember what brand this is. It was one of the more popular brands. You see a lot of people who do this. So we've got this little guy right here is going to snap down and be secured onto the CPU itself. And then this radiator is going to handle cooling things. So that's the entire water-cooled system right there. So there's a little pump inside here, and it goes pushing around. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to bolt this to the top inside of my case, and then I'm going to put three RGB, of course, fans on here, and it'll make lots more pretty glowy, or actually, case, fans, radiator. I'm pretty sure I'm going to mount it that way, and should be in pretty good shape. So that'll be cool. And I can't believe there's no thermal paste that came with this thing. This copper part is what goes right on the CPU. I'm very frustrated and dismayed, but not broken, never broken. Oh, and by the way, I also got, I guess not super critical, but I bought two. I don't have them on me right here. I got two NVMe drives, two M.2 1 terabytes each. $107 for a terabyte. I'm still convinced that maybe they wrote the price down wrong or something, because that seemed awfully cheap for an M.2 drive. This particular motherboard supports three M.2s. It's got three M.2 slots on them, all of which support NVMe, not just SATA. And so I go ahead and put two in, or I will. I'll keep one as kind of like the operating system, and then the other one I'll put as storage. And keep in mind, I'm thinking about this as a desktop, casual gaming, and home workspace kind of system. Just to give you an idea. All right. Okay, let's see how we're doing on questions here. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I know, I don't have thermal paste. How embarrassing is that? Hey, Scott Jernigan, I know you've got some at home. Can you push some out to me, man? Chris Arkwright, yeah, going with M.2. Two of them. Oh, man, I can't believe. Yeah, and Chris, I'm physically tied to my desk here. They're just right over there. Okay. So that should do it for me. The only other thing that I've been toying with is that I could probably knock the video card down substantially and turn this into a NAS box. It just seems like a waste because of all the pretty colors and all that. There is one little thing on here I didn't show you guys. It's actually kind of cool. Something I like. If you take a look, this thing has dually RJ45s. So that could be real convenient for me. Oops. Is that an M.2 USB? Yeah, it's a USB-C display port and onboard sound. So, yeah. It also comes with 8 SATA ports. You could make a pretty good NAS system out of this motherboard. Just, I don't know, it seems like it might be overkill. You know, a lot of these I just use for demos and for teaching, and then I got to give them a home. I guarantee you, if this had a good video card on it, Scott Jernigan would be over here trying to get it. But without the super high-end video card, my friend Scott Jernigan and my friend Dave Rush, they're a little picky about video quality. So I think we're okay there. Let's see if we got some questions. Da-da-da. So guys, generally if I see an @ sign, I'm going to skip it quickly. So Elbow, for me, cable management very quickly turns into anger management. I got to tell you, Elbow, me too. But the thing is, especially with most of the good cases we're seeing today, you're going to have an area underneath the motherboard. So you have the motherboard, you have the metal screwed into the motherboard on your case. There's usually a gap back there now, which is just a godsend for good cable management. And it really does help quite a bit. So I'm less perturbed about it. What's going to get me in trouble with this build, I'm going to tell you right now, is the RGB. For RGB to work, you have to have some form of controller. And on a lot of these systems, you'll have multiple controllers, and then you have to put, one controller has to be the master, and there's a lot of configuration there. And that can often be the most frustrating part. The nice part about that is that if you're doing good cable management from the start, usually that means you're opening one door at the bottom of your case, right? And that's where you're jacking with RGB controllers and such. Also, I'm going to use some twist ties and have some nice cable management in here as well. So it looks pretty good. That should cover... Oh, I'm sure there's going to be more as I think about it, but let's see what you guys are asking about. Chris Arkwright says, these days you want the sticks to be closer to the CPU. I don't necessarily agree with that, Chris. I'm not saying you're wrong either. I mean, your timing cycle is going to be your timing cycle. There's no wait states in there. So if somebody's telling you that makes a difference, I'm going to respectfully disagree with them. Andre thinks 850 watts isn't going to be enough. I think it's going to be more than enough. I mean, the only thing that's going to be pulling anything here is the video card. And that video card, at best, is going to max at 150. So we'll see. Jim Baron, Wi-Fi often also gives you Bluetooth, which is important for VR or controllers. That is true, but I don't think about Bluetooth on desktop systems very often. Which has bitten me a couple of times, I won't lie, where I've ended up having to get a PCIe Bluetooth controller card or something like that, or a USB to Bluetooth. But I don't tend to think about Bluetooth on desktop systems. Then again, Jim, I don't do a ton of VR. Oh, it looks like you guys are talking about this closest and furthest away. I'm going to stay out of that. Eddie Lagos, didn't the box say it had Wi-Fi? I didn't see it. I could probably look again with you guys right now and then say, oh, there it was. That's it. Okay. So first of all, I want to talk about our special today. So guys, we got something different tonight. What we're going to be doing for today is we're selling ebooks. So this is A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus ebooks, which is the exact same book as the paper book, just E. And so we're really starting to get into ebooks now and that type of thing. Isn't it funny? I still sell more paper books than ebooks. Isn't that crazy? And my books have been in ebook format now for 15 years. So basically, I'm a little confused because it says A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus only. But that includes my passports, which are my cram books. I'm going to let you guys negotiate that. Be sure that a discount shows up. So in order to take advantage of these cheap books, all you got to do is go to www.totalsem.com. Head over, pick up the books you want, the ebooks you want, and type in the code NEMY 800-821. Boy, they're really good at 1-800-999. No, I'm kidding. But just type that in, and you can get these books all at 25% off, which is amazing prices for amazing books, to say the least. I'm so frustrated I don't have thermal paste on me. I could at least have schlepped on the liquid cooling system, and then we could have at least juiced it up. But that's what you get for having a crazy guy like me. Andre wants me to stop drooling over the motherboard. It's a nice motherboard. It'll last me for a while. It's probably overkill for anything. Jim Barrow, Mike, did you find someone to fill the employment opportunity since I watched here? Yes, we did find someone, but we're, Jim, probably looking for another person. So this will be much more, not so much presentation as just straight up technical. So we are, yeah, I'm still looking. And I'm still reading resumes, that's for sure. Zach, which one did I buy? Zach, it's an older Ryzen. It is the, where'd it go? Let me give you the exact number. So this is the Ryzen 9, so it's a higher end, but it's the 3900 XT. So still 3.0 gigahertz base. It's going to look good, man. Can't wait to fire this thing up. So the most I've had so far is on my older Ryzens, where I only had 16 threads. So now we're going to kick it up to 24. Is that accurate? Yeah. It's second only to like a Threadripper, the 12th generation Intel i9s that are up to 30 or whatever it is. So yeah, so it's the AMD Ryzen 9 3900 XT. It's a compromised CPU. The Ryzen, the 5000 series, they just didn't have any. And I wanted to have some toys today so we could at least get started and talk about the construction of it. Jason Helms says he'll take it. Sneha, S-N-E-H-A, Sneha S. How to hack own website for practice purpose. Is it legal or illegal for any sites? To hack your own website? You can do anything you want. That's perfectly legal. To hack anybody else's website can get you in an extremely large amount of trouble. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Have a friend set up a website for you to hack into, or, you know, I hate the word hack. You want to do a pen test, right? And if you're going to be doing that kind of stuff, Sneha, get it in writing. Get an agreement that says, you know, here's what I can do. I can delete files in certain folders. That's usually one thing you can do. I'm allowed to change the index.html to something silly, you know, those types of things. But it's completely legal to hack your own website. Axe, what's Mike getting into today? Well, Axe, as you can see, we're continuing to talk about building my dream system. And because I'm out of heat dope today, we're a little bit of a slowdown. And because you can see, I even brought in the second camera. I was trying to be all super fancy here, right? And we'll keep that camera there, but I'm going to do some thermal paste. I'm going to do a lot of this building, but I'll shoot some video of it while I'm doing it. And then come Wednesday, I'll have the big Lian Li case with most of this stuff installed, and then we can really just talk about configuration more than anything else. Thomas Robinson, maybe there's a thermal pad. Nah, Thomas, I looked pretty hard. I was thinking the same thing. Unfortunately, the entire contents of the water cooling system have been dumped out onto my dining room table because I went through all that. I was hoping there'd be something in there. Yeah, no dice. Crazy, huh? So Tolowit likes is the NZ. I don't know this particular one. I'm going to take a little peek at it though real quick. It's a case. Compact ATX mid-tower case. Looks pretty to me, man. You know, a lot of the features that I used to look for in cases have now become so standard. Like, for example, having your power supply at the bottom with a cooling system at the bottom for storage. That's pretty standardized now, unless it's a really small system. Everybody has that. Rolled edges are pretty much standardized now. That secondary backing for cable management is pretty much standardized now. There's very few cases out there that I find that I don't like. Oh, that's actually Tolowit. That's it's only a $60 case at Newegg, $62. Good case. Jim Barham, very serious question for Mike at 2:32. Could you do a YouTube live speaking about how to best organize data on your devices or servers? I find I have a very poor folder structure. No. I think the biggest challenge you have with any type of folder structure for anything is making something that works well for you versus something that works well for everybody else. And that has to do not so much just folders, but a lot of times how your data is workflowed and stuff like that. And first thing you're going to say is, well, Mike, I don't really have a workflow. This is just for my home system. You have a workflow in terms of videos you might be storing, or PowerPoints, or whatever it is that you collect on the internet. You do have a workflow. You just haven't really thought about it out loud. So probably the first thing I would say to you more than anything else is talk out loud about what you're trying to do. Even Scott Jernigan doesn't have thermal paste. This is a sad day. I'm going to have to go back to the store. How embarrassing is that? So anyway, back to the data is there's a couple of easy things you can do. Number one, you've probably heard me say this before, and that is one physical drive for operating system, another physical drive for your personal data. Mainly because it just makes backups more convenient. It makes operating system repair a lot easier if I don't have to worry about if I got the same system that's got precious videos on it, and I don't have to worry about doing a system restore if the drive is physically separate. That's going to be a big one. If you do that, then that also takes care of my biggest single issue, and that is avoiding the user folders for anything but the most personal of data. Now you're going to start talking about different types of users. My great nemesis are users who treat their desktop as their primary storage area. And I am one of those as well. So, where you just dump everything on your desktop. Everything goes on your desktop. Start making folders on your desktop. A lot of backup tools know to look at things like your user folders for pictures, downloads, all these different things. And if you start putting everything into your desktop, most of these backups will back them up, but they don't back them up as well as when somebody does something and does it in a separate place. Another big one for me, for example, virtual machines. VMware, for example, will try to make a folder called My Virtual Machines. It's been a few years since I've seen this. VirtualBox does it too. And all of a sudden you're getting all this dumped on your C drive, and all of a sudden your C drive fills up, and you can't get into, you can't do any swap filing or anything like that. Temporary files don't write, blah, blah, blah. So, having that second drive in there, preferably physically a second drive, but at least a second drive letter, second partition on the same physical drive can be very, very handy. So Jim, the thing is you need to look at your data and say, what is this data doing for me? Does this data spark joy like that cleanup lady talks about? Data that you don't look at for at least a year is archive and should be treated as archive data. Shouldn't be polluting your system. And then the other question, Jim, I'm going to ask myself, I'm going to be looking at this data, however it's stored right now, and I'm going to answer, this is the question. You ready? If this data goes away, am I going to cry? Okay? Now, sometimes you have to say that on a file-by-file basis. Sometimes you can look at entire folders and say, oh, I don't care about this stuff. And again, that ends up being archival type data. The problem is we get lazy, especially when we have a lot of space on our drives. It's like, I got plenty of room, just going to leave it there. I'm not a big fan of that, simply because if that drive ever dies, most hard drives are going to last between 3 to 6 years at best. And, why risk it? Back it up to the cloud. Back it up to another drive that isn't written on very often. They last a lot longer. Back it up to SSDs. I have SSDs now that are 10 years old that still work like champs. I barely ever use them, but they still work like champs. Scott Jordan looks like he's going to answer you there also as well. And Andre, you do know that I was being sarcastic about the power supply, right? Yeah, absolutely. 850 watts is a lot of power, isn't it? Just looking for questions. Jim Barron, what do you think the best style format would be for an IT professional resume? 1 page, 2 page, generally 1 page, with photo or not, never put a photo. I mean, unless it's for presentation skills or you got a job, you're going to be peddling face cream or something, I don't know. Picture, I've never heard of the thoughts, language to use, clean language. Jim, we did a couple of videos on this probably 5 months ago. Please do a search on the Total Seminars channel and just do a search for the word resume. And we've already done this, Jim, and I think you're going to find it very handy. Not only did we talk about resumes, the contents of the resumes, but we actually had some students submit their resumes, and we all critiqued them as a group. So please watch that video. And Jim, if you have more questions after that, I am more than glad to answer that for you. Wayne's World, excellent. Zach Morehill, I applied, but as I had no Security Plus knowledge, I didn't get the job. Ha ha. Well, you never know, Zach. Eric Sinizakas. Sorry if I messed up your name there, Eric. Bought a hard copy A+ and just started Udemy courses A+ this week. Good man. Get studied up. Get certified. You're definitely certifiable. You guys are just having fun chatting with each other. Jason Elms. Mike, what was the motherboard you chose again? This is the Republic of Gaming S-Trix. They just call it the X570E. Here, let me show you the box. I knew I wanted the X570 chipset, so that is what I ended up with. You can really waste a lot of time on motherboard choice, but for me, most of the time, as long as it has the chipset I want, and it's a brand that I respect, I'm going to be happy 9 times out of 10. Extra features like built-in onboard Wi-Fi, which is now becoming more and more standard. I like to use 2 network cards. I will almost always find a job for the second one. What's even cooler, and I just found this out, is that the second Ethernet port is for 2.5 gig Ethernet. So now I'm sitting there going, ooh, maybe I need to go get me a new switch. I've been wanting to move out of 1 gigabit Ethernet for so long, but honestly, you know, why? Why? All right. If my internet is gigabit internet, do I want to send my print jobs to my printer faster? You know, do I have a big bunch of storage videos that I want to stream? You know, well, there's one good reason, because it's cool. But it's really, it's expensive. Who's talking about who's CCR? Creedence Clearwater Revival? Good Lord. All right. That's what I get for answering @ signs. Jim again. You're asking a lot of questions. 241. Question, Mike. Any good cases which are ATX desktop cases which can be under the monitor? So you mean a case that goes underneath the desk? All ATX tower cases would fit that criteria, Jim, if I think I'm answering your question properly. Lee is a brand that I've stood by for a long time, mainly because they're pretty good about using high quality materials. As little plastic as possible on a case. If there's going to be glass, then make it glass. I don't want plexiglass. I don't want plastic. I want aluminum. And Lee is famous for using aluminum for a lot of what they do. So there's lots of good ones out there. As long as it says tower, it will fit under the monitor. Are you talking about like a slim line where the computer sits on your desk and then you put your monitor on top of that? Well, there's plenty of those out there too. Usually you'll see them more and more under like home theater and stuff like that. And they're usually going to be like a 4U type box because they'll actually fit in a rack. And they're still out there. They're very common. Andre, don't give me any trouble about the awning, man. I forgot to do all my drugs today. P. Duff. Don't come around here tonight. Intel and AMD are going to fight. Well, right now it's not much of a fight, P. Duff, because the Ryzens at the same price point are mauling Intel. Although I was seriously tempted. They had some great pricing for i9s, and I almost did it. But I couldn't find any motherboards. I mean, how in the hell? I don't understand. Matt H. Hi, Mike. Long time no see. Yeah, Matt, how's it going, brother? What do you think will be removed, added on the next Net Plus series? Nothing. There's nothing to remove. I don't know how much I can say about this, Matt. The new Net Plus will probably come out sometime this year, at the end of this year. I have some information, but I'm under non-disclosure, so there's not much I can say. I will say this. The next Net Plus refresh will be one of the easiest refreshes I've ever done. Corsair, Chris Arkwright, he's mentioning a Corsair 500D. I don't know these cases off the top of my head, but I still have a almost, how old is that Corsair 360? I have a desktop, a tower, a mid-tower case that is at least 10 years old, possibly older than that, from Corsair, and it runs like a top. I've put a lot of new motherboards in that thing over the years. Wayne's World, been loving your chats of encryption. Thank you, Wayne. I work really hard on a lot of those encryption conversations in my videos because, you know, certain little things that people never explain well, always frustrated me. Like, what is a key? All right. So a lot of people, they'll be talking about, you know, some kind of encryption, and they'll say, you know, key length. But nobody ever bothers to explain really what a key is and what it does. Because you hear the word key, most people who are new to cryptography think password. And keys can be based on passwords, but it ain't a password. So that's why I spent a lot of time on that. So thank you very much, Wayne's World. I worked hard on that, and we're always going to make it better and better, that's for sure. Sean Naylor, would you say it's helpful to work on my own rig as I'm studying for the A+? Sure. I mean, Sean, you know, most of the questions that you'll see on the A+, so if you look at the objectives, they give you pretty good, clear ideas. You know, how many pins are on DDR3 and 4, and, you know, what is a, you know, LGA 1151 versus an LGA 1200. So a lot of the ankle bone connects to the thigh bone kind of questions can be handled with the system. The thing is you don't want to break your system. GOLO is starting to take over my home again. We'll talk about that later. I just heard chatting going on. The computers. No, computer overlord. Everything is well here. I, for one, welcome our new computer overlords. Yeah, don't break anything. Man, that's you know, people start going in, hey, here, look at this. They break stuff. And just be careful. Any system that is shut down, as long as you're practicing good ESD, you can take almost any part out and put it, you can take the CPU out and put it back on. Some of the stuff takes a little bit of work. With that notice in mind, do keep in mind that when I was messing with my stuff over here, I don't have an anti-static wrist strap on, but you know, you can touch the top of a CPU. You're not going to hurt anything. You don't want to touch the pins on the bottom. You can grab RAM as long as it doesn't have exposed chips on the side, and as long as you don't run your fingers across the little wires on the bottom, things are going to be fine. With a motherboard, when I'm in contact with it, I'm going to touch the big pieces, but most of the time I'm either keeping it with an anti-static pad like this, or I'm just holding the corners. I'm treating it like a piece of film. So yeah, you can use your own system to help study the A+, but I would prefer if you use something that is a little bit less precious. So I do what are called UAs. UAs basically mean I have tons of equipment laying around that probably doesn't even work, but people can look at it and go, ooh, ah. So it's kind of nice to have DDR versus DDR2 versus DDR3 versus DDR4. A nice little stack. Makes for good pictures in my books, makes for good videos, but it's also nice, like when I'm doing instructor-led training, I bring them along so people can look at them and touch them and, you know, lick them or whatever they want to do. They're not going to hurt anything. Yeah, no, we're not talking about any changes on the Network Plus, Scott. Scott's all worried because of our NDA. I'm not going to break the NDA. Jason Elms. Mike, we are all humans. We forget things, even if it should have come with some. 243. Okay. Jason, I'm not quite sure what you mean. No, I'm sure he'll figure it out. 244 Elbow. My family member I'm trying to build a PC is currently using an Intel Core Duo, all right, 4 gig of RAM, and a 512 megabyte GPU. Yeah. You know what that is, Elbow? That's a Linux box. David Zientra, you can scrape the residue out of your old thermal paste syringes. I don't even have any old thermal paste syringes. I was seriously going to do the toothpaste thing, but just because I've read something from a couple of sources, the right answer is just have the right tools. P. Duff, seems like people generally hate pre-applied paste. I don't hate it. I'd prefer to put my own on there, but so many fans in particular have that little peel off and it's already preapplied. You just squish it on there. Although, God, I tell you, man, if it wouldn't make such a horrible mess, I would be really interested in putting a piece of American cheese on there. I can't even. It's gonna melt and it's gonna leak. I don't care. I really look it up yourself. Heat dope or anti-thermal paste American cheese. Jim Brown at 2:45 p.m. Question, Mike. With what you said, only using the home folder user library for your most personal, I'm thinking about ways to break it down. Photos, music, etc. Jim, we do zillions of photographs here at Total Seminars. And some of these photographs are, 25 years old now. So we have an extensive library. And what we usually end up doing is, like, for example, hardware. We have a folder on one of our file servers called hardware, and it's got CPUs, RAM, motherboards, expansion slots. I'm trying to think. But the reason these folder names pop up, Jim, isn't because there's some industry standard for it. The reason they came up is because I understand what my workflow is. And, oh, I got it now. Thank you. I understand what my workflow is, and that's what makes the best sense for me. So, Jim, you need to be thinking about, and because kind of really what you're doing in a way is you're building up a library and how you want to organize that thing. Another thing that's important, we've never done this at Total Seminars, and it drives me crazy. We've tried it a couple of times, is using metadata in our graphics, for example. That could have saved us a lot of search issues, but we never did. So, yeah, Jim, that's these are big challenges. I'll be glad to give you some thought about this, but I would, in order for me to help you and really help you, I'd want some real details about why are you putting this stuff on your computer? So my home folder user libraries, what do I put there? I put very little there. I use the down here. Let me just look. I don't make sure I don't want to lie to you. I got a lot of garbage. So my desktop has things on it that are important to this particular system that I have high degree of confidence that I'll be using again and again and again. So, like for example, I've got FTP root. When I did an FTP class, I'm looking at the contents of my desktop. PowerPoints, because I'm always pulling up a PowerPoint to show you guys something or another. And then a bunch of individual files that get pulled up for one reason or what do we got here? Like Wireshark files, things like that. But for the most part, I don't have a lot on my desktop. Downloads, I actually use downloads a lot. And I will tend, with my downloads folder, because I find myself download the same silly thing 4 times a year for one reason or another, and it gets deleted, and I got to re-download it. Or I don't remember quickly what version of something I downloaded. So I tend to use my downloads folder as kind of like a database, as long as it doesn't get too monstrous. Because a lot of times I'll download ISO files in there because I'm building up virtual machines, so I want to watch that stuff because that can get messy. What else do I tend to use? The documents folder. For me, my documents folder is almost more like junk stuff, things I probably am going to use once and then toss. If I have things that are important, I have other places to put them. Again, for me, it's PowerPoints. I use PowerPoint basically like other people use Adobe After Effects. I can use it. I can make it do a lot. And so there I have in the cloud, is one place I put a lot of those PowerPoints, mainly because I use so many of the PowerPoints for presentation. I want to have easy access to them, even if it's not at one of my computers. And I want to be able to just log into Dropbox or whatever it might be, and I always have access to tons of PowerPoints. You'd be surprised how many times people ask me, hey, Mike, can you give a speech now? I'm like, okay. Other things like images and stuff like that, I just almost don't even use those. Music, I'm not a music person, like at all, sorry. So pictures and videos, those are also places that I tend not to use. There would be exceptions of that for users if I knew they weren't doing a lot of graphics, or when I say a lot, they're not risking of filling their drive because of the convenience for a lot of backup software, which will automatically assume that you want to back up the user folders. So that would be the one exception where I would do stuff like that. Dun, 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 dun. Eddie Lagos, the only thing on my desktop is the recycle bin. Eddie, I'm not quite as good as you, but I try to be. Jim Brown, I have about 7 terabytes of data. I handle all my final videos, all of our legal documents. There's nothing wrong with having them on a server, Jim. The trick is like, for example, family videos, photos, and then legal documents. I mean, these should be obviously separate folders right there, right? Yeah. P. Duff, is that a big boron drum behind you? That's my boron. I've got a big tipper, lad. Yes, P. Duff. No, Jason, the thermal paste. It should have, yeah, I got you. Thank you. Scott Jernigan on the side was like, didn't you understand what Jason was trying to say there? Question, Mike. Have you heard of any kind of file manager software which will remove... Oh, there's tons of file management software. The problem is we've been using Adobe Creative Cloud, which has features like that in Adobe. I don't remember what it's called. I pay other people to do this stuff now, Jim. But there's tons of great management software out there that will do things like that for you. I can't give you any recommendations. The only one we use is the one that's kind of built into Adobe. Byron Blackburn, thank you for all your work you've done to help me achieve A+, Net+, and all 3. Byron Blackburn, way to go. Look at you. Mike, whenever you get to BIOS, you really should turn on XMP. Yeah, I know. And Elbow, I do turn on XMP sometimes. For those of you that don't know, XMP is kind of like automated overclocking. You see it in your BIOS. I've just had mixed result with it. You know what? On this build, I will do exactly that. We'll do a comparison. See what happens. Nada D says, C Cleaner. Free has duplicate finder if that helps. Yeah, Nada. God, does C Cleaner have duplicate file finder? I didn't know that. Yeah. The thing is I like what I think Jim's looking for in terms of database organization is there are programs out there which are more drag and drop where you can really just sit there and go nuts and start organizing. I guess my problem is Elbow's talking about, why use my RAM at 2400 megahertz when I have 3200 for free? Well, because I want it to work and be stable. That's the first big thing. XMP definitely helps in that department. The other thing is that the amount of power you get by overclocking today is trivial. I mean, you know, I hate to date myself, but I remember jacking with like old Pentium 3s where we could literally double the clock rate and going like from 200 to 400 megahertz. That made overclocking interesting because you really got a whole new level of power. But now it seems people are getting 5 or 7% in actual throughput in terms of benchmarking. I'm less impressed. Gene W. Garcia, what has changed on the new security test versus the last one? Oh, Gene, there's a lot of stuff there. And Gene's typing in question marks. That was back at 3:10. That was 1 minute ago, Gene. Come on, man. I got people who wait 15 minutes for me to get to their questions. What is new? Boy, there's a lot of new stuff on there, Gene. Probably the biggest thing isn't so much subjects. It's just the way they look at stuff. For example, CompTIA for years took a whole big thing as risk management is a big part, and they've really softened that quite a bit. So it's going to be more of, vulnerability, managing vulnerability, penetration testing, forensics, business continuity, things like that really come into play in terms of the quote-unquote soft skills. I think it's a bit more technical. You definitely don't, the Security Plus harps on a lot of different utilities and tools, primarily at the command line of Linux, although certainly PowerShell as well, that you need to have some degree of comfort with. I don't think you should walk into a Security Plus course without a good understanding of Wireshark. And Wireshark's barely mentioned as an objective. So those would be some of the big things that I'd be looking at more than anything else. Okay, Nada, I didn't doubt you. I just didn't remember that it was CCleaner had the Tools Duplicates Finder on there. Does anyone have a 3-monitor setup? I don't. I'm a 2-monitor kind of guy. That's always been the way how we roll here in Portland. All right, so here it is, 3:13. Okay, so first of all, guys, a couple of things. Number one, do remember that we've got this 25% discount on ebooks, which we've never made this offer before. So this is pretty exciting. So it's 50% off of all of our A+, Net Plus. Oh, careful. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. There it is. 25% off of our A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus ebooks. So all you got to do is go to www.totalsem.com and head on over and load up on some ebooks, and then type in NEMY 011821. Yes, 25% off. I got it, Scott. 25% off ebooks. Scott Jernigan will put those details on the chat window so you'll know how to do that. Also, guys, do keep in mind that it's very, very helpful for you to subscribe to this channel. It definitely helps things, and if you could like and subscribe, I would sure appreciate that. You know, I never understood why people on LearnKey videos said that until I started doing my own LearnKey videos, and suddenly it's like, they're right. That's a good idea. Okay. Just making sure we don't have any hidden questions coming on the email. VGA. That's scary. Okay, guys, last call for questions here. Remember, the goal here for the AMA is we run till 4 o'clock. or until the questions run out. Do keep in mind that come Friday, we're going to have Dave Rush doing his magic with the Raspberry Pis. Dave, what are we doing this Friday? You got anything interesting going on? Do keep in mind that people are like, well, I don't want to learn about Raspberry Pis. I'm here to learn about A+, Net+, or Security+. Well, Dave Rush teaches A+, Net+, and Security+ using Raspberry Pis. Dave's attitude, and one that I completely share, is that if you can use a $50 computer, why spend $1,000 or $800 when a $50 computer will do the exact same thing? And that's exactly Dave's goal and motivation for the Raspberry Pi, is to be able to use an inexpensive tool. Like, for example, Dave's going to be doing part 2 of his DNS. So using a little tiny box this big to configure a DNS server. How cool is that? So I recommend Dave, and he is every Friday. Eddie Lagos, hey Mike, I won a free bundle last Wednesday. Emailed Kathy with a Y, haven't heard back. Eddie, send her another email, man. Don't ever, look, we're a little tiny mom and pop company. It's not like we got banks of phone answerers, okay? There's like 12 of us. So if something doesn't happen, Eddie, just yell. Send another email. CC me on it. It's never a problem, man. We're good for it, I promise. We're absolutely good for it. All right. Elbow. Mike, I have a question. What percentage of a PC build do you do with the case lying down? Almost all of it. The only thing that I would do with the case standing in its production position is probably be tweaking some of the RGB stuff, because I got to go in through the back side of the case. But no, most of the, with any luck, if I get everything working Wednesday, you will see an open case laying here on the ground, on the table right here in front of us, and we can watch all that happen. 90%. P-Duff, is the help desk a good way for somebody to stay up? Yes, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. Zach Moorhill, I apologize, and I know you answered this last week, but I'm going to ask it again. What would be the difference in getting a Ryzen 5 high-end and a Ryzen 7 low-end? Which would be better? It's not going to be much. Here, let me pull that up. I've got this linked somewhere around here. So you've got to be careful. Where did you go, Zach? Okay. So there have been 3 generations of Ryzen processors, and we tend to hear the word, 4 generations, and you hear like Ryzen 1, Ryzen 2, Ryzen 3, Ryzen 5. Now within there, the Ryzen has always had like a Ryzen 5, a Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9, okay? And so you got to be very careful about your terminology here. So you're talking on any one good family, which one would be better? Well, let's compare a couple. You want to compare a 5 and a 7. So I'm going to take a look at the most recent Ryzen 5 I can find, which is the 5600X, versus the Ryzen 7. And I'm just on the AMD website here. So the Ryzen 5, obviously it's going to be a little bit. So the Ryzen 7 has, like I said, more cores, more threads. 6 and 12 on the Ryzen 5 versus 8 and 16 on the Ryzen 7. Interestingly, the base clock on the Ryzen 5 is a little bit faster than the Ryzen 7. Who'd have thunk it? L2 cache is a little bit bigger on the 5 versus the 7. Power use is about the same. That's about it. Those are the differences. So they're not going to be huge. Think one. That's pretty straightforward. God of Reality, there he is. Not a D. Will there be DNSSEC with RPI? RPI. What's RPI? Somebody help me out. RPI stands for Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Is there another term that I'm supposed to know? Is that Raspberry Pi? Will there be DNSSEC with Raspberry Pi? Nada. I don't know exactly what David's teaching, but I'll let David answer that. My guess is no, but I'll let Dave answer that because DNSSEC is a whole other level of complexity. Byron Blackburn again. I have a 3. He's got 3. God of Reality. I have a question. Why are you the best teacher ever? It's because I'm good looking, man. Yep, Gamers World had that answer a lot faster than I did. Number of cores off the top of his head. Good for you, man. So from what you just said, would you go for a higher Ryzen 5 than the 7, as it sounds like the stats are pretty much the same? Yeah, the prices are often fairly similar too. Yeah. The thing is that, you know, I usually work on a lot of stuff that can take advantage of literally every core you give it. I use Blender a lot and a few of the Adobe tools, and they can really take advantage of literally every core you have. So I tend to go for cores. Sean McLaughlin, do you know why there are so many hops when you access a web resource? Yeah, because each one of those hops is a router. And you got to go through routers. Sometimes when I use traceroute, it seems to go back and forth between different countries. Isn't there a more efficient way? They tried to do more efficient things, Sean, with IPv4. Like they tried to set up so one router would be like the 11 router. So every IP address that started with 11 would go through this router. And it never really happened. They weren't able to pull it off from an organizational standpoint. They're doing a better job with IPv6. You got to keep in mind, the internet, by its very nature, in terms of routing packets, is very efficient because the routers negotiate this stuff. And if there is a problem with a route, it's probably because there's a problem. There could be a political issue. There could be a money issue. So just because I see a route go through different countries, that doesn't make it inefficient because I don't know everything that's going on. Oh, I'm glad you guys like my Ryzen. Did I miss the tech giveaway days, or was that a further off teaser? Tech giveaway days? Elbow, I'm not sure what you're talking about there, buddy. I don't think we're going to be doing any. The problem with tech giveaways is that you guys live all over the world. And I always feel bad somebody wins a piece of equipment and I physically can't get it to them. So I tend to stay away. All right, looks like the questions are slowing down a little bit, and that's fine. Guys, do remember that we have, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please really do that. It doesn't take that long. Just click, right? You're watching the YouTube, just right down there. Just click on it. Also, don't forget our Discord channel. I should not say our Discord channel. It is not my Discord channel. It is the unofficial Mike Meyers Discord channel. It is not affiliated with me, although I do drop in from time to time. It is not affiliated with Total Seminars or my company or anybody. But it's a great place to be. If you're studying, you should stick your nose in there every now and then. And it can be a very helpful place when it comes to helping you study for the CompTIA Plus. So Dave Rush said there was a discussion of DNSSEC briefly, and I'll show how to enable it for our DNS server this week. Oh, cool. All right. There you go. All right, guys, it looks like that's about all we have today. So don't forget, the Discord channel tends to be popular after these shows. I will not be there today. I will be on this Wednesday, and we can have some more discussion then. Come Wednesday, when we come back, the setup should be pretty similar, but what's going to be different is I'm going to have a lot of this built up, and I'll have some videos that we can look at or pictures that we can discuss about the building up of the dream system. So we will finish with building your dream system on Wednesday. Guys, do remember that it's always appreciated if you guys send me kinds of information that you're interested in hearing about. Send me emails and just say, Mike, can we talk about this subject or this topic or whatever it might be? I'm usually glad to talk about it if we haven't even talked about it already. But this is an Ask Mike Anything. The onus is on you to ask me questions, and then I will answer them. All right. I don't think... God of Reality, what is the best CMD code? You mean command line? For speeding up a PC that uses a lot of RAM for no reason. Well, it's using RAM for some reason. I check out the task manager and nothing is using it and no malware. God of Reality, somebody is using the memory. All right. If you go into task manager and there's nothing there, how do you know that the RAM is being used? So I'm going to have to hold on to that one. We can pick up on that one later. Gregory Schubert Jr. Hey, Mike, I emailed you a while back. Did you happen to get it? Oh, Gregory, I got a number of you. Oh, hang on. Gregory Schubert. Gregory, I don't see it quickly, but that doesn't mean I didn't get it. Gregory, just send me another email, man. I apologize if there was something I should have responded to, and I will work hard to answer your question on a more timely basis. Sorry about that. Yeah, I get close to 400 emails a day, and sometimes stuff sneaks through. All right, guys, I am out of here. I will see you all this Wednesday with hopefully more system. Don't forget Dave Rush this Friday, and I am out the door. And don't forget to get on the Discord channel if you're feeling Discordy. And this is your Uncle Mikey saying good night, kids. How do I get out of here? There it is. Good night. We're off.